Frank Sepe for Muscle and Fitness. I'm here for Military Fitness and Wellness Month with Senior Military Editor Robert Wilkins. And
Hey, Frank, thanks. With my good friend, Matt Hesse. Matt is a Army veteran. He's doing big things in the military space. He's doing great things in the physical fitness space. But Matt is a guy who just continues to give back to the community and make sure that the men and women who served our great nation have opportunities in the realm of fitness. They have a new mission in life, and that is being personal trainers, giving people hope and giving them inspiration that their new calling in life is to get people fit to live, not just fit to fight, fit to be there for their families and fit to be there for their grandchildren, be it so. So Matt, thanks for taking the time to join Frank and myself. Can you give us a little bit of background about what made you join the Army? And are you from a family of people who have served in multiple services? Like, have they served in the Air Force, the best service there is, Marine Corps, the Navy? But give us a little bit of background about your family's military service.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. Both of you guys are longtime advocates, both the veterans and health and fitness. You've both dedicated your lives to that, and both of you have advanced all of the causes that are important to me. So I'm happy to be on this little three-legged stool adventure with you guys today, and we'll look forward to continuing to serving next to you in the future, both of you. I think if you'd asked me that question 7 or 8 years ago, I'd probably have a different answer why I was called to serve. I came from a pretty tough childhood, grew up without a dad, and I think that kids that grow up in trauma situations are often kind of formed at an early age to want to help other people not feel the way you feel. I now have the understanding and consciousness to that. And I think not every service member joins the military for that reason. I think some people join because family members served. I think some people join because they're proud Americans and want to fight for democracy and freedom. And I think some people join because they want to help other people. And all of those are great reasons to join. And I think the United States military, I know our country has a big heart for veterans, but I think a lot of the civilian population a little bit misunderstands the veteran population in a few ways. And I think they also, thankfully, we've moved on from Vietnam and now we're celebrating veterans. But I think that we need to do a better job of empowering them to continue to serve when they get out, because there's so much opportunity. So my entry into the military happened in happenstance. I was wandering around a little retail store in the middle of Wyoming, 17, chip on my shoulder. Just I wasn't a bad kid, but I was definitely finding my way into stuff that I probably shouldn't have, and a lot of it just because I didn't have a father figure growing up. And a military recruiter did his job and saw me looking at him, and wandered over to me and started chatting with me, and he lured me to his boxing gym. That was his gateway drug, and got me hooked on after school boxing with him. And within about 6 months, I was signed on the dotted line and going off to basic training. But I look back at different times in my life, and one of the most pivotal things that happened to me was meeting him and enlisting, because I learned a lot of the things that I built my life off of in the military, and I value it very much.
And so from that time that you signed to join the Army, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do in the Army? Did you have a job specific choice where you left to take tests and see where you ended up, or did you have a goal in mind when you joined?
I think he had a monthly quota, and he's looking down and he's like, "What do you think of big guns in the artillery?" And I was like, "That sounds cool." I think these recruiters play such a important role in shaping. So one of the things I'd love to get to working inside of the DoD space is why are kids joining, and what MOSs or jobs should they be going into based on the things they're passionate about. The earlier we do that, and the more left of the challenges we have in the transitioning population, we can align their careers in the military with things that they're passionate about, serving being one, obviously. But that'll help them make a pivot out when they get into civilian life, and try to figure out what career they can go into. Obviously, if you have expertise in an area of the military or in the career you served in that is applicable in the civilian space, that's great. But what if you went into the military into a career you didn't really love, and you built your subject matter expertise in that space, and you're like, well, I'll just go work in communications because that's what I did in the Army. And then you might end up in a civilian career where you're not passionate about that either. And so a lot of my work is really focused on helping people identify like who they are, what they're passionate about, the skills and experiences they have in their lives, and then centering that around a career and then building the capabilities to help them live it. Because I think purpose is really an important part of all of us. And I want every service member to not only survive when they get out of the military, but thrive because they find their way into things that they love.
You know, obviously we know one another, and one of the reasons I really respect you is I've been in the fitness industry for a very long time, and I've watched people from Fortune 500 companies, Ivy League backgrounds, try to start a supplement company and fail miserably. Like no matter what they knew. But I think because you were in the military, because you had that background, because you had the determination and the structure and everything, you built one of the biggest supplement companies in the industry and were extremely successful at it. Do you think the military gave you kind of the keys to have that drive and the structure to do that? Because I've seen it time and time again where people, who you think would be a success at something and they fail. And here you are, you didn't have a father, you in the Army, didn't know what you were going to do. And now you're at the top of the food chain in the supplement industry, which is, that's a huge feat.
Yeah, no, I think that the military definitely helped form attributes that have helped me be successful. I also think if you look at, leaders who have been successful in other industries, a lot of those leaders have backgrounds where early traumas happened to them in childhood and they've had chaotic lives, and something happens, two things happen in a traumatized child. One, they don't really feel sorry for themselves. They do, but they don't really they don't know how to articulate the feelings inside. And so what comes out is, I don't want anybody to feel like I feel, but they actually don't ever try to heal themselves. They just want to help everybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's one part of it. And then the second one is there's a new gear that's built, I think, in the sort of fight or flight survival type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think my gear was flipped at a really young age, that I'm going to survive, and I'm going to do it by working hard. And it wasn't a conscious thing as a child, I don't think, but it was definitely built in me in a different way than any of my brothers. And they didn't endure the same traumas that I did, thankfully. And I think that those things in combination, wanting to help other people, an incredible drive, and never quitting, like, our ultimate John Cena, never give up, never quit. That is a really, talk about entrepreneurship and why people might fail, Frank. I think it's because they quit and they stop looking for an answer. And when I'm faced with something adversely, I look around it and pivot 50 times until I figure out a way through it. And I think a lot of people just don't do that. And I think it's probably because, that old saying of hard times create strong men, good times create weak men create hard times. I think that the things that don't crush us, that we learn from and grow from, help us become the leaders that we are. And there are things that I wouldn't trade them for the world. A lot of these things, we all have things that we're dealing with that are tough, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. If you just don't quit and you keep trying to figure out how to either figure it out or get around it, or get past it, I think the answer into your question is, people I think they quit too early. They stop believing themselves.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
And for your time in the service, how many years did you serve in the Army, and did you serve overseas? Were you mostly stationed here at home? And what about the people that you served with? What do you think about that as a reflection of overall America? Like, the military is a gathering of people from all walks of life. And how did you get along with people when you said you were from maybe a small town? Were you surprised by some of the people you met from, say, say Detroit, New York City, LA, or any of that? Like, come across people with, like Frank, who say coffee as opposed to say coffee.
Daughter, my coffee and daughter.
Yeah, it was a huge eye opener for me. I was 17, so I was a split up. So I went to basic training when I was 17 before my senior year in high school. And to be 17 in the Army in basic training with a bunch of, full grown 18, 19, 25 dudes, again, back to work ethic. I was like, I'm not only going to finish this, I'm going to be at the top of my class. And I was the honor graduate of my class because I just had this incredible, like, burning, like, drive to be. I wasn't successful. I just like, I can't really articulate what it was, but I saw those people in my basic training classes competition, which, the Army is about building teams and cohesion and all that. But
you're an army of one.
I was Army of one. That's right. There you go. That's a recruiter. So I learned a ton. I was from a small town, farming town in Nebraska. The epicenter of the middle of the country, and rural, and I had a big awakening when I went to basic training, for sure. I guess how long I was in. I was in for 6 years. I went into my career, went to the National Guard, and spent some time, working and going to college, and that's where I found my passion for nutrition and training. My time in the military, from a deployment perspective, we were not at war during that time. So I did go overseas, but we were not fighting. So I had what I would say is a pretty, I don't want to say unexciting, because I had a lot of fun times in the military, but definitely different than the last 20 years during the GWAT, for sure.
What was your first move out of the military after 6 years? Like, what, as far as a job? Because obviously we're going to talk about the FitOps Foundation.
Yeah, sure.
What were you qualified to do? Like, now you're handling multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment and doing everything in the Army. Like, now you're out, and where do you go?
Well, I went back to Nebraska, went to school in Lincoln, and started working at a nutrition store, which was GNC.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was my first job. I had a wrestling injury. I'd wanted to wrestle in college, and I broke my neck training. And during the rehab period, my physical therapist was like, you got to get calcium and you got to get protein. And I'd never really taken any of that stuff. And so I went in a GNC store and met what I would kind of call as my first mentor, who owned that store. And I loved, like, learning about nutrition and programming and writing nutrition programs and giving them workouts, and they'd come back. And some days I'd have an old lady coming in who's going through menopause, and she's crying. And I was like, this is crazy. And I help her get, oh, you're having hot flashes. It's black cohosh is for hot flashes. Yeah. And so, I found, again, back to service. Like, I just love helping people and helping them find their way. And I found that path in that store. And, I've had a long career in many ways with GNC, in terms of, I was a employee, then I became a franchisee, then I became a vendor and started selling them supplements. And now I'm back at GNC helping them rebuild their workforce out of veterans who want to be personal trainers and nutritionists. My first job was at GNC.
Seeing firsthand, one of the things that you created, the FitOps Foundation. I don't know if you know this, Rob, but probably about maybe 4 years ago, they did a deal with NPC IFBB, where the competitors, if they were competing, if veterans were competing and they were a part of FitOps, that they would get in for free and be able to compete. And you think that would be a little thing, but seeing these competitors and how it affected them was just extraordinary. Like, there's so many stories of, they're tear-jerking stories of people coming out of the military. They had no place to go. And obviously Matt is going to speak to this, but seeing it firsthand, when they won a show or they placed, and for where they came from to that point, is just absolutely amazing. So Matt, just to talk about the foundation that you started and
Sure.
Out.
Yeah. So the FitOps Foundation was the, I guess, brainchild of the the trauma that I had seen in service members, not just coming back from war, but just coming out of service and going to the civilian population. I knew a lot of guys that were suffering at that time, and I'd sold Performix, the brand that I started in 2017, and I put some money into a foundation, and I wanted to figure out like what was really causing veteran suicide, because we hear the numbers, and I'm going to give the audience the numbers that are pretty staggering, and people sometimes will say, well, that's not actually the number, but it is. 7,075 troops have died and been killed in action in the last 20 years during the global war on terror. And in that same period of time, 150,000 plus veterans have taken their own lives. And the numbers are staggering. They're crazy. And the suffering that goes into that number, and then the amount of suffering that's not even in the number of people that are just alive and just really having a hard time, you're talking probably in the millions. And so, I've been directly impacted. I've never been suicidal, but I've definitely felt the despair of what I think is probably the beginning of that. And I've seen firsthand friends. I've had students, applicants to my program that I've sent emails to and gotten a message back from a parent that said, I'm sorry, this person has taken their life. And it just guts me, man. I've just had I'm not a religious person, but I feel like I've been given a mission to fix this. And I know fixing it is a big thing, because it takes more than just me. But there's some calling inside of me that has latched on, that is determined to solve this. And so the foundation was the beginning of that. I took 32 veterans away to a Boy Scout camp with little tiny beds in the middle of Texas. And we lived there for a month. We worked out, we studied, we sat around a campfire at night and talked. We worked on resumes, and the early pieces of this was, I knew that the population that was transitioning was suffering, not just because of combat. I knew that from my own experience. I knew it from people that I had served with that had gone through that. And so that was kind of the first piece. The second piece was that if it's not related to strictly related to combat, there has to be something, a thing or some things that are driving this. And I wanted to figure out what that was. And so I ran about 8 different pilots over about 2 years through the foundation. And the data set that came out of that basically said that the loss of purpose and identity when you leave the military is so debilitating that it opens up the funnel. We'll call it the suicide funnel. It opens it up, and doesn't always end in suicide, but it definitely ends in suffering, or suffering is a big part of it. So loss of purpose and identity and who you are translates down to suffering, and maybe some subsequent uses of things like alcohol, or just bad self-talk, or whatever comes with all that. And then that kind of the next layer down, which is inclusive in the top layer, is loss of community, loss of camaraderie, loss of unit, loss of support, loss of structure. Then maybe these bad behaviors start to play a role. And then the next layer down is loss of family, loss of friends, loss of job, loss of ability to take care of yourself. Layer down is more suffering, hopelessness, potentially homelessness. And you can see why that can spin down into something. And so when I looked at that, and I watched all of the exit interviews from all of our students who talked about their experience there, I decided that we have to find a way to give purpose and meaning to people, or help them find purpose and meaning before they transition. And that it can be done in 2 ways: your personal life and your professional life. And the more you can align those 2 things in things that you love and care about, i.e. service, helping people. And then the third one is helping yourself. And a lot of our service members never help themselves. And so I guess to land the plane there, all of those things led me to, we need to build careers for these people in industries where they can continue to serve, they can help people, they can be healthy and help themselves, and they can find a way to thrive in potentially ecosystems that are good economically and fulfillment and from fulfillment perspective. And at the end of the day, I chose to begin in the personal training space because coaching is a way to serve people. It's healthy. You can make a good living at it. And most of all, the impact you have on other people that's your brand. That's that's the product you're selling. And what is the number one thing that drives the desire to serve other people? Empathy. So if you can find a way to channel empathy into a set of skills that allow you to help other people, that can translate into a lot of other things. It can translate into just being a coach on the training floor. It can be, I want to start my own gym and help other people. It can be, I want to be a health coach and help architect people's lives, not just physically, but intellectually, emotionally, from a values perspective. So 8 pilots later, it's about 2019. I had just left Performix and started really thinking what I want to do next. And after about 4 months of looking through data and watching videos, I got the idea to take all of this data, write a book, which is called The Purpose Blueprint. It's not out yet, so don't go search on Amazon for it, but it will be. And the whole idea of that was to build a strategy with steps and workbooks that will allow you to identify who you are based on where you came from, on all the experiences in your life, good and bad. So on a timeline, mapping out your origin story, all the great things that have happened to you and that you found happiness and love, all the bad things that have happened to you where you may be repeating traumas and finding areas in your life that are unhealthy. And it's not rocket science. When you break that down, you say, well, these are the things I like doing, and these are the things that make me feel bad. I should stop doing these and do more of those. And so that's the framework of the blueprint. It's to help identify the things that you care about, things that you don't want to be a part of anymore. And we break that down into 4 pieces. And the curriculum that has now been created into the University of Health and Performance is how to think, train, feel, and lead for your future. Intellectual skills, physical skills, emotional awareness, and value system. Creating a framework out of those 4 things combined with the passion, experiences, and skills allows you to build a meaningful career in life. You'll be happy to live. And so at the end of all of that, you graduate with a personal training certification that's accredited. Go get a job in any gym in the country. And you have a career and life plan that you can update as you go that helps you navigate. We all need a plan and goals in our life. And a lot of people just kind of brush over that and they go, oh, well, I'll go work for my brother Jim over there. He's got a lawn mowing business. I think that'd be all right. And maybe you can make a few bucks mowing lawns. Maybe you hate mowing lawns. No offense to people who mow lawns. Might love it. But I think that the more we can help service members find places to land that they love and enjoy, and that allows them to exercise that burning desire of empathy to help other people in a meaningful career that is something they can be proud of, and something they can build a foundation off of, and then eventually grow into their ambition. I think that's the ticket. So that's what we do.
That's all incredible, Matt. And I think for you to find that, you had to have it in you to be empathetic toward others, because you probably would have been all right. You sold this huge company. You had enough money. You can do whatever you want. You could have flown around the world. You could live anywhere you want, but you went back to your brothers and sisters that you served with. And, I've speaking to many veterans from time to time, I've heard them. One veteran shared with me that he'd rather be back in combat because there he knew where he stood. He could look at your uniform, or he could look at a uniform and say, that's a captain, that's a tech sergeant, that's a sergeant first class. He can check out the ribbons. When you walk into a boardroom, the person who might be the most junior person, the person who's not even dressed appropriately, may be the owner of the company. And as he said, I'd rather be in a place where I understood, like I didn't understand I need to have a black pair of shoes with a black belt. So I remember he was telling me that he went to work the first time and he wore brown shoes with a black belt, and people were kind of giggling at him. And for a lot of folks, they thought, like, what's the big deal? Did that hurt your feelings? It did hurt his feelings in some aspects, because he said, in my uniform, I was a was always sharp. People always commented me on my uniform and how I looked at it. My first day at the civilian workforce, they were like laughing at me because I didn't know about this stupid shoes and belt. And so I think what you have provided for these men and women who come to you is that you give them some structure, what they all need. You give them discipline, you give them hope and inspiration, but maybe more than anything, you give them community with people who understand what their feelings are, what they're going through, because they've been there before. So I think salute to you for doing that. And it's just a big deal because people do need purpose in their life. As you said, maybe not everyone wants to mow lawns. Maybe people want to give back, and you're giving them that mission part 2. They served our country, defended freedom, and now they're doing another mission, which is something that they need in their lives. So hats off to you for doing that.
Well, it's my purpose and my pleasure. I've built a couple of nice companies and had success relative to economics, but I've never felt anywhere near the level of purpose in that work that I feel in this work. And like everything I do, I'm not doing it small. We built a 500-acre campus in Arkansas with some incredible infrastructure, and it's like the Disneyland of transition for health and fitness. It's a lot of people ask me, do you have to want to be a personal trainer to go to the program? And we stopped using the word personal trainer as a definition of what we do, because I believe that great coaches can show up in many forms. And so what we pride ourselves on now, and what we message for ourselves outwardly to anybody, is we're leveraging empathy in the desire to serve others with skills and connections that allow you to exercise that empathy with others. And that can be, a coach can show up on the training floor, in an office, in a media company. It doesn't have to be a fitness coach. We believe that coaching is a skill to connect and invest in people. And you can take that anywhere. And so, our vocation is, we are giving them an accredited personal training certification, but that is simply just a vehicle to get them a foot in the market where they can continue to serve while they figure out, do I want to be a coach? If the answer is yes, they'll come back to UHP and get a precision nutrition cert, or a TSAC tactical cert. Maybe they want to go back into the formation as a civilian coach in the Army and train the current force. Who better to go into those positions as a civilian to train active duty? They understand them, they can relate to them. And because our curriculum is so holistic, physical fitness is one piece of the 4. Emotional awareness and understanding, we talked about that empathy to help other people. We've got to also talk about turning that inward and helping ourselves. And a lot of service members just don't take the time to help themselves, serving the country and serving their family. What's left over for you? And that's important. It's really important. So we spend a lot of time on that.
I remember speaking to a member of FitOps, and he was in charge of his unit. And when he got out, and we were talking about personal training, and he said, I actually love being a personal trainer. And I said, oh, do you? He goes, number one, it makes me want to get in the best shape to inspire all my clients. That was the first thing. And he said, 2, people used to count on me. He goes, now, the accountability factor's there again. Now all these people are counting on me. So not only I'm getting in better shape to inspire, but then he's like, I want to learn more. So he's going to college to get his degree in kinesiology. So it's that, that's that whole, it all worked together, like, that whole combination. So when people say, well, just a personal trainer, no, I mean, it's more than just being a personal trainer. It's what it could lead to. It's what it's there for, what it could create for you mentally and physically as well. I mean, we spoke, Matt, with many of these candidates who were competitors. Some were, hooked on drugs, and they need the structure of getting prepared for a contest to kind of take their mind out of that and put it to something else. Yep. So I think it's absolutely, like, what, I don't know if you ever seen some of the videos, Rob, but they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing to see where they came from, who they are. But that always resonated with me. He's like, yeah, now I got to get in shape to inspire them, because I have to have accountability to them. So I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. How do people get in touch, or could they donate to FitOps?
Yeah, so the foundation works in kind of three areas. One, obviously education, health and fitness space. Any veteran who's trying to go to school and doesn't have the money to go, whether they use their GI Bill benefits for their kids or they don't have them for some reason, you can apply to the foundation to help you go to school. That's one. Two, we're still working in the suicide space and trying to make sure we understand every bit of it. So suicide research. And then three, counseling and support is a really important part of what of anybody's life. I don't think counseling and therapy is something that anybody should look at and go, oh, that guy's in therapy, that's bad. I actually think, therapy creates vulnerability, vulnerability creates strength, strength creates outcomes. And so we do a lot of continued work in that space through the foundation. And you can go to fitops.org and donate to that, to the charity there. And then if you're a service member or veteran who wants to go to university and go through the purpose blueprint and go get your accreditation as a personal trainer, it's intensive. So I'm going to tell you now, it's a 21-day, 220-hour curriculum. So you're literally training, studying, opening up. We do a lot of work, in mindfulness, in self-reflection, and so there are things inside of it that will make you I won't say uncomfortable, because the camaraderie in the unit that's there, people bond. Rob, I'm sure you can relate to this. When you get around military guys, there's just something about it that you just feel instantly comfortable. And that the bonding, and we bring 32 guys and girls from around the country, both active duty and veteran, to the camp. And within 2 days, they're a team. They bonded, they trust each other, they support each other. And we put them through some high pressure situations to try to bring things to the surface, physically, mentally, emotionally, the gamut. We've got a 58-degree river that runs through our property that we submerge in almost every day, do cold therapy in. So that is a important part of what we do, because again, it's holistic. It's not just giving a personal training cert, it's the full thing. It's PT at 0530, it's chow at 07, and then they're in the classroom, they're on the training floor, they're out on hikes. There's a theme of the day. It's all this. It's awesome. It's really awesome. Anyway,
how many students have gone through your training course?
Almost 500 now.
500.
And this year we'll be scaling up to around 2,000 in 2023. For the last 6 months, we've been working on putting in place federal funding lanes such as GI Bill, CA, COOL accreditation. We should be able to use that here within a couple months. We have Department of Labor partnership as well, where if GNC is going to hire 1,000 coaches from us in the next 2 years. A lot of those folks will go through the Department of Labor because GNC is guaranteeing a job on the other side. So it's a great program. Go to university-hp.com and hit register, and there's a process you go through. It takes about 7 minutes to apply. Then you have a Zoom interview with one of the admissions staff, and then we'll slot you into a class. And we're now slotting in 23 because 22 is almost over. But there's in 22 we worked to build our phase 2 and phase 3 education, which is going to be precision nutrition 1 and health coaching 1. Those are both accredited certs that'll allow them to either come back and get more education, or if you want to be a health coach, you can go through that as in a phase 1. There's a ton of different ways to skin the cat when it's talking about human performance. It's not just personal training. So we'll be building curriculum across all the modalities of physical, mental, and emotional fitness.
And what you're describing is, the Army H2F program, it seems like there might be a natural path between you and them, because what you're doing is you're producing the trainers that they may need for their H2F program. They're going to be hiring thousands of people. So it seems like you guys have a great synergy going in the near future, if you don't already have it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I became aware of H2F about a year ago. I'd been out so long. We did push-ups, sit-ups, and running, which I would have loved to have been a part of the new Army Combat Fitness test, because it's more my speed. Frank, you'd love it. You'd max it out for sure. Maybe I don't know about the running part. Maybe you are pretty fast. I actually see you on the track sometimes, so that might be wrong. But anyway, you're right. There's the H2F doctrine is physical, mental, spiritual, sleep, and nutrition. it lines up almost identical to our curriculum already. And so we do bring active duty soldiers and airmen, sometimes airmen, to our program. Specifically, we get upskilled as in-formation H2F leads. Future state, Rob, currently H2F only allows CSCS certified coaches, which means you have to have a 4-year college degree plus an NSCA certification as a CSCS. Filling those roles is challenging. One, because there's only so many CSCSs in the market, and right. Two, Army pay is sometimes not as competitive as collegiate or professional sports pay. And three, probably most of all, relating to a civilian coach relating to a soldier is really challenging. It takes many years for them to get up to speed. So, we are focused on helping H2F put coaches into those roles. One of the things that we've been talking to Senator Bozeman about and Congressman Womack, who are our federal leads here in Arkansas, is working with TRADOC to maybe give prior service credit to service members to say, hey, you have unique skills and experiences that make you qualified for this role. Maybe they report into a CSCS and they're actually the ones on the training floor who are helping connect the dots, because H2F is not just those 5 domains separately. They're integrated and working together. When you have SMEs at the top who are subject matter experts in those areas, it's not necessarily intuitive for them to come down and work together on one soldier. And the challenge is that they're only hiring 35 SMEs per 2,000 or 3,000 troops. So Frank, I don't know how much programming you can do, but if you had 3,000 clients and you had 35 people, so I'd really like to see prior service count in that space, and I think it will just take a little bit of time. But Rob, great point.
Yeah, and I can maybe help you connect. I know Kevin Beldelman, he's the director. So if you don't know Kevin, I can connect you with him, and at least you could start open the door of conversation. What's possible? Yeah. But you have no shot if you don't talk. But if you talk together, you might be able to come up with some solutions or some ideas.
Yeah, you're spot on, and absolutely, definitely tell him about UHP if you have a chance. One of the things that I did early on, we started building. We got licensed as an education institution first, and then I went and hired 3 world-class subject matter experts. Colonel Kelly Howard, I don't know if you know Kelly, but she was the head of education for the VA prior to coming to us. She's our provost. She's was active duty about 10 years, mostly with General Casey, and now is on Colonel Beagleman's H2F team, and she leads the yoga practice in her Army Reserves career. She's the provost and education lead. Dr. Ben Frakely, who was previously the Ranger Regiment and then at the Toronto Blue Jays as their head of performance. And then Hunter Schur, who was at First Special Forces Group for 10 years and one of the original Thor 3 coaches, and spent his entire career in collegiate and then tactical sports. Those are the 3 main educated leads. And then there's obviously others under. So if you're considering coming to the university, you're not just getting run-of-the-mill coaches when you come here. You're getting literal world-class coaches who have expertise in all the areas, but know how to connect the pieces.
What's the ultimate goal, Matt, for the foundation? Like, what would you like to see?
So as a foundation grows, part of the strategy of the university is to produce the economics to make that foundation stand alone. So I'm not asking others to donate it to. I'm producing all of the resources from the university. So continuing to build out entrepreneurship arms, so that anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur can get funding through the foundation to do it. I think that's a really important thing to not just catch soldiers up. So you spend 10, 15 years serving. In order for you to be successful in a civilian, you got to make up all that time somehow. And you're never going to make up the relationships. You're never going to make up experience in the civilian job. But if we can give them empower them and give them tools and resources, they can accelerate in a different way. And so I think entrepreneurship is a really important pathway for these guys. So putting funding in place for that. In terms of the university and scale, we're building to hold about 14,000 service members per year. So right now we have roughly 1,200 beds in terms of per year capacity. By the end of 23, we'll have about 2,600 beds capacity. So as they come through for a month at a time, we're turning those things quickly. And so once all the federal funding lanes get lined up, we'll be producing roughly 14,000 coaches a year. And then to your point, Rob, where can these guys go and impact? We know the health and wellness industry is exploding. Personal trainers, nutritionists, health coaches are all in high demand across tactical, corporate, professional teams. How do we now build a brand where someone says like, oh, that's a UHP coach, knows how to build connection with clients, knows how to program and train, knows how to build community, and knows what their brand is and how to represent either employer or themselves. And so, we're not trying to be a credentialer in terms of like, NSCA. There's tons of great certifications out there. NASM, all those guys do a good job. You can get certified as a trainer in a weekend online. I want to produce quality coaches who are certified and qualified, and have empathy and the ability to take that empathy and harness it into building relationships and coaching through it. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm going back to my brand building, and we're going to build a brand out of the population that literally built this country. And I believe that brand will show up in a lot of different ways, but coaching will be the primary driver of it all.
And when you've mentioned that you've had hundreds of students go through, as we're wrapping up here, do you have about 2 or 3 stories that really they really have stuck with you because the
Sure.
person maybe when they came to you was one way, but by the time they left you, thanks to the coaching, thanks to the community, thanks to the information you provided them, they have changed their life around?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I first started this, I will admit that my desire to help was somewhat, internal, I think, of my own. I was creating a petri dish to heal myself in some ways. But it wasn't out of pity in that I pitied these guys because I cared about them. I think the civilian population, they feel the same way. They feel the despair of the population. They're trying to help. But largely a lot of foundations raise money off of suffer porn. They make people feel bad, so they give them money. And what it's doing is, there's 45,000 veteran nonprofits that are raising money, making people feel sorry for our population. And I don't know about you, but I'm more proud of my service than anything. And so how do we as a society align desire to help and with empowerment versus pity? And it goes back to entitlement. I think that, we as a country are good at feeling bad for people, but the way we translate feeling bad and helping is usually giving them things like, oh, I feel bad. Here, I'll donate some money. And I think we need to shift that into whether it be education. This doesn't apply to the veteran space. It applies to homelessness. It applies to kids who are in poverty. It applies to all these things. Giving them money and things might help a little bit. What they need is education, encouragement, support. And so, that's a bigger conversation for another day probably, but I feel really passionately that we need to shift that a bit and drive a different story. And when Michelle Obama she built a program called HERS, which is basically how to change advertising in the marketplace so that women aren't portrayed, with aprons on and cooking, and because that's helping to drive the narrative that women don't have any other skill than being a mom or a housewife. And I thought the idea was really good. They got a lot of industry people around, and there was a council that I was fortunate enough to be on. I think we need to build the same type of thing for the veteran space. We need to stop advertising that veterans are broken and start advertising that we have a resource in our country that have literally built this country off their backs and their blood and their tears. And we don't feel sorry for them. We feel grateful for them, and therefore we want to find ways to empower them to be the leaders they are in our communities. So I don't know if I just went down a rabbit hole there, but sorry.
Good information.
No, but you really explained it well. And I think, your platform is a platform that more and more people hear about it. They want to be a part of it because, again, they want to be a part of something that's successful. They want to be part of something that gives them some stability and some inspiration and hope. And, one of the reasons that children love athletes is because athletes provide hope. They dream big. Like, how many times do you think Michael Jordan was told, you never can be that big? He got cut in the 9th grade, but look, he turns out to be the biggest star in the world of sports because he worked hard. And so I think children see the inspiration and the hope in athletes because that's what they want for themselves. They want to aspire to be a great athlete, a great educator, a great musician, and athletes provide that kind of hope for them. So I think you're providing hope for our men and women who serve our country. I mean, we are the greatest team in the world. The armed forces are the greatest team there is. They're the team that everybody aspires to be like. And I think, after you hang up that uniform, you need your next mission. So, working with Matt Hesse may be a great way for you to find that next mission. There you go. That's and being part of that brand, I think is something great. So we're going to look for ways to help you, Matt. We're going to have you back if there's ways we can help promote what you're doing through the pages that we do, or our websites, or through our connections. What you're doing is God's work, and so we're going to do what we can to help shine a light on the things you're doing, because you can't do it by yourself.
I've worked with him firsthand, and he is a tremendous leader. And if you see the end result of some of the vets that came out of FitOps, it's just incredible stories. It's just, proof positive.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I brushed over your comment or your question there. I'll give you one story, and there's many. You asked that question, like who are some of the stories you've heard come through your program? The very first camp, we had a young soldier who had been injured in Iraq, had been given pain pills for his injury, got hooked on opiates, ended up getting kicked out of the Marines because of his addiction, ended up in a rehab facility, which he had to pay for because he lost his benefits because he got dishonorably discharged, which is, another conversation. But this young leader went through rehab, got clean, came straight to our program from rehab, became a personal trainer, trained during the day, went to school at night, and was so inspired by the effect that our program had on him, that he took that empathy, went back to school, and got his master's in counseling, and is now a counselor that works in the VA counseling other veterans, and uses personal training as a vehicle for his counseling. And so, that's a really good example of taking, mental fitness, mental health, anchored by physical fitness, and merging them together. And now he trains people both physically and emotionally. And that was inspired through our program. He did the work, but the framework for him worked. And, I think that the stories that are going to come out of this place are just going to be, I get goosebumps thinking about it. My brain constantly is working on creating the next thing for it. So I don't sit in that stuff long enough. But whenever I'm asked to speak, I can sometimes never compose myself, and I'm normally never like this. But when I speak, the emotion, it forces me to let emotion out, and I got to get it under control, because a crying leader on stage is not always the best thing. But it happens to be the outlet where I let go of trauma that I've heard, and even all of the gratitude that I feel for being able to do the work. And I think these service members experience the same thing through their work as coaches as well. So I'm grateful to be doing the work, and I'm grateful for you guys being willing to support. And I hope you come down to camp and do a live Muscle Fitness Live from UHP at some point. It looks like Spartan Games is going to be filmed on our campus in April. So maybe that's the time for you guys to be down there.
We're going to see Donnie Jensen down there.
Donnie Jensen will be there. That's right. That's right. Donnie Jensen, the CMO of Spartan. He used to work for phenomenal guy.
He lived the life.
Yeah. So we'll turn that into a big fitness weekend. We'll shut the campus down, rent the barracks out for charity. 20 of the best racers in the world will be competing, and I'm trying to get the 4 best squads across Army, Navy, Marines, and probably the Coast Guard. Just kidding. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
Well, sounds good.
So
Matt, we really, really appreciate your time. And again, we will have you back. We just can't thank you enough for what you're doing for our troops, what you're doing for our country, because those are the best men and women that we produce. And so to give them hope, to give them inspiration, to give them that next mission in life is very, very valuable, very, very, very compassionate of you to do it. Because again, as I said earlier, you don't have to do these things, but you are. So If not you, then who? And we really, really appreciate what you do. So thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Look what happens. You work at GNC and you turn into this amazing person doing all these, giving all these opportunities to people. So
all GNC, all
yeah,
GNC.
maybe more than a job at GNC and turn into to more entrepreneurs, but awesome. We really appreciate it. And thank you, GNC, for your support to those who serve.
You're a good egg, Hesse. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you both.
Right.
Talk soon.
See you
Take
soon.
care.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye now.
Bye.